Alright, welcome back to the JFK Assassination Audit. It is 27 December. Took a little vacation there for the holidays, and we're going to get right back into it here. When we left off, we were talking about Julianne Mercer and her statement about seeing Jack Ruby and the rifle and everything like that. Now, this one says, I don't know where they got this time at, but this one says it occurred shortly before 11 o'clock. And it says Julianne Mercer was driving through Dealey Plaza. Her car was held up by traffic on Elm, close to a parked pickup truck containing two men. She noticed one of the two men take a package the size of the shape of a rifle case out the back of the pickup. The men carried the package to the top, where it would later become a famous grassy knoll there. Now, at least we got a time. The only problem I have with this statement is, if you think about it, and, you know, maybe the shooters just weren't as careful as I would be thinking they would be, seeing that it was most likely a military-type operation. But if you're going to kill the President of the United States, and everybody knows the President of the United States is coming in an hour and a half, don't you think you would reduce your chances as someone in the public right there seeing you walking around with a rifle near where the president was going to be going by? Don't you think you would reduce that? So that's the only thing that bothers me. If you're going to be carrying a rifle up to the picket fence, which is where I think they would be, don't you think they would park around the back in the railroad yard, or park over off of that extension along the Texas School Book Depository and come around there, or maybe park over off of Houston Street and come around the back end of the Texas School Book Depository? Anyway, that's what I would think. I wouldn't think that someone would go out in the middle of the broad daylight, in the middle of the plaza, only an hour before, and put the gun there. Matter of fact, I would think that someone would maybe come early that morning or that night and leave a car there parked with the rifle in the trunk and just leave it there. And so there'd be no suspicion on how the car got there or anything like that. And then all they have to do is come later, pop the trunk, rifle's there, take it out. Boom. Good to go. That's what I would think. But that, I don't know. Who knows? This is her statement. She's saying, also we do have to remember that she is saying this after the fact. Okay? She's saying she saw after the fact. She's telling the FBI or the Sheriff's Department. Now, I'm not saying she's lying. I'm just saying that people come up with all kinds of interesting things after the fact. That, oh yeah, I saw this, I saw that. Especially something famous like that. I'm not saying she's trying to be famous, but I do find it interesting, though, that with such a critical piece of information that they were even willing to put in the movie, okay, they put her statement and had an actress portray her in the movie, but Garrison didn't bring her to the trial. Okay? He put a guy that, you know, said he saw Ruby and, or not, excuse me, but he put a guy in the trial on the stand that said that he saw Shaw and Oswald and Ferry together, and then on the stand said he also would fingerprint his daughter, you know, when she went off to college and came back, just to make, and re-fingerprint her to make sure it was the same girl. So if they were that careless to put someone like that in the trial, but Oliver Stone thought it was important enough to include Julianne Mercer in the movie, her statement, why wouldn't have Garrison put her statement in the trial? Why would you brought her as a witness in the trial? Because that would tie Ruby right there into, you know, assisting in the assassination. But I don't know. Anyway, so we read over her statements. I want to go over some of these again. It says, a few hours later, she gave a statement to the Sheriff's Department, which she mentioned what appeared to be a gun case, and she felt able to identify the two men. And I think we read this one earlier. Hold on one second. Yeah, that's the Sheriff's Department statement. And it just says the date. It doesn't say what time she saw them. It doesn't say what time she's doing this statement, which I would think would be critical, but that's just me. Alright, so we'll go to the next statement here. Hold on one second. After Ruby's public killing of Oswald, Julianne Mercer had two further encounters with the FBI on the 25th and the 27th, in which she was shown a photograph of two men, but was unable to identify either of the men as Jack Ruby or Lee Oswald. Huh, interesting. Because in the movie, they make it, Garrison says, wait a minute, let me see if I got this right. You identified Ruby as the driver of the truck 2 days before he shot Oswald. Is that correct? She says, yes, she did. So that wasn't correct. Let's see what it says here. On the 25th, this is her statement for the FBI. It says, Julianne Mercer, there's the same address, appeared at the FBI office, Dallas, and she was shown a group of photographs which included that of Lee Harvey Oswald, which was taken at New Orleans, Louisiana, August 9th, 1963. New Orleans Police Department number 112723. After examining the photographs, Ms. Mercer advised that it did not appear that any of these persons had been the person she had seen take what appeared to be a rifle case from the pickup, and had seen take what appeared to be a rifle case from the pickup truck at approximately 10:50, there we go, a.m. on the 22nd, 1963 on Elm Street near the Texas School Book Depository. She was then shown a photograph of Oswald separately and said this did not look like the person that had taken the rifle from the truck. Now that makes sense, because if you think about it, Oswald is up there tearing up the 6th floor, okay, with everyone else, and then running his orders, and so it'd be pretty difficult at 10:50 for him to be getting a rifle, going out, on a break or something like that, and picking up the rifle and bringing it in. So this is obviously someone else that was firing from the picket fence. Let's see what this other statement says here. This is the statement on the 28th. It says, Julianne Mercer, could not identify any of the photographs as being identical with the person she had observed slouched over the wheel of the green Ford pickup truck parked at 10:50 a.m. at the point near the place where the President Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. She was shown a photograph of Ruby, and she advised that the person in the truck had a rather large round face similar to Ruby's, but she could not identify him as the person. So why would Garrison, or why would Oliver Stone put that line in there? Because she didn't talk to the FBI on the 22nd. She talked to the Sheriff's Department, Police Department. But why would they imply that she identified Ruby on the 22nd, 2 days before he shot Oswald? Isn't that kind of strange? Kind of makes you not very happy with Oliver Stone and his portrayal of what happened. Anyway, it says, she was shown a photograph of Ruby and advised that the person in the truck was rather large, round face, similar to Ruby's, but she could not identify him as the person. So, also think about this. So, the traffic's backed up because of the truck, so once she gets around the truck, the traffic's probably going to start going a little faster. So, as you think about how many times you've passed a car with someone in it on the right that's parked on the side of the road, and you saw their face and then tried to recall what they looked like several days later. Pretty difficult thing to do. Anyway, she was shown a photograph of Lee Harvey Oswald, and she stated that Oswald was the same general build, size, and age as the person who took a long package from this truck, but she also could not identify him as being the one who took the package in the truck. Again, they're going to use military-type people. Oswald's a soldier. These other people are probably trained soldiers also. But in the movie, again, remember she goes, "Oh my God, that's the same one that I saw carrying the rifle." Remember that? So that's kind of strange, I think, that Oliver Stone would imply, like propaganda, not using something that actually happened. Let's see, is this one the same? Yeah, this is the same here. Alright, so I'm going to hold on to those. It says Julianne Mercer's later statements in January 1968. Mercer came to the attention of Jim Garrison, who had begun to investigate the New Orleans aspects of the assassination. In conversations with Garrison and later with other researchers, Julianne Mercer claimed that the official version of her statements to the Sheriff's Department and FBI were false. In particular, on Saturday, 23 November, she had positively identified a photograph as that of a man in the driver's seat of the pickup truck. She had turned the photograph over and saw Jack Ruby's name written on the back. But the only problem with that is that, let's see, 25. Let's see here. So that's 23. Okay, so 23. Okay, it was the 23rd that she went there and made her statement. So it's interesting, the statement that we have here. Hold on one second. Anyway, so let's see. After seeing Ruby murder Oswald on television, she contacted the FBI and told them that Ruby had been the man sitting in the pickup. Her signature on the statements has been forged. Interesting. Mercer was wary of publicity and did not appear before the House Select Committee on Assassination, so her claims remain untested. So that's interesting. I find that interesting, that the variations between what she says at one time and what she says later on are just a little bit different. Anyway, hold on one second. And this one I found, I haven't been able to find any statements of his statement on this, but it says Julius Hardy sees 3 men on top of the triple underpass bridge carrying rifles. So whether those are policemen, I'm not clear on that. But if anyone finds something like that, let me know, because I've searched all over the internet and can't find anything. Alright, so this next one I was able to find statements on. It says at 11:30, Charles Gibbons said that he encountered Oswald reading a newspaper in the first floor domino room at 11:50. That doesn't make much sense. Anyway, maybe I wrote that down wrong. Let me go back and read his statements here. So this is his affidavit, and he's appearing before, of course, Mary Bretan, and it says, I work for the Texas School Book Depository. I worked up on the 6th floor today until 11:30 a.m. Then I went downstairs and into the bathroom. At 12 o'clock I took my lunch period. I went to the parking lot at Record and Elm, and I have a friend who works at the parking lot. We walked up to Main and Record when the president passed by. Then we walked back to the parking lot the president had passed by. We had just got back to the lot when we heard the shooting. I think I heard 3 shots. I did not see anyone in the building that was not supposed to be there this morning. Alright. Let's see, now here is his statement before the Warren Commission. And let's see. Hold on one second. Alright, so Mr. Given says that usually he fills orders with stock from the 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. And on the 22nd, he says we were fixing the floor, putting down some plywood on the floor. What floor would this have been on? The 6th. What part of the 6th floor? We were working on the west end. Alright, do you remember what time you got to work that day? Yes, I got to work around 7:45, so 7:45. Where did you go when you go to work? I went to the little lunch room we have downstairs. He's talking about the domino room. Yes, sir. You carry your lunch with you? Yes, sir. You put your lunch there? Yes, sir. Did you wear a jacket to work that day? I wore a raincoat. I believe it was misting that morning. Did you hang your coat in that room too? Yes, sir. Did you know Lee Harvey Oswald? Well, I knew him. Have you ever talked with him at all? Well, I talk with him once in a while. I mean, just about filling orders or something like that. Sometimes I check and he was filling orders and he make a mistake and I call him to get the book right. Do you remember any conversations you had with him? What you said, what he said? Well, he was a fellow that kept pretty much to himself. He never had too much to say. Did he ever say anything to you? What a nice day about his family baseball or anything? No. Ever talk to you about anything about politics? No, sir. And there you go. So, again, we've got Oswald, the communist advocate, okay, who's getting in fights and passing out flyers and going on radio shows and TV shows in New Orleans, but somehow in Dallas, he doesn't say anything, doesn't talk about politics, doesn't advocate, nothing like that. So it's very, very strange. And let's see, we can skim down some of this. Hold on one second. Alright, here you go. So he says, where did you see him first? Well, I first saw him on the first floor. About what time was that? Well, about 8:30. Okay, where's the package? And where's the question? Asking them about the package. So Oswald would have had this package, okay, for his curtain rods. He would have put him in the Domino's room with his jacket, or he would have put his jacket in the Domino's room, gone upstairs, and put the package over by the wall or behind some boxes, don't you think? He's got to hide this somewhere while they're working, so that no one else sees this package. Very, very interesting. Alright. Says, when did you see Lee Harvey Oswald next? Next? Yes. Well, it was about 11:45. We were on the way downstairs and we passed him. He was standing at the gate on the 5th floor. I came downstairs and I discovered I left my cigarettes in my jacket pocket upstairs. I took the elevator back upstairs to get my jacket with my cigarettes in it. Then I got back upstairs. He was on the 6th floor in that vicinity, coming from that way. Coming from what way? Towards the window up front where the shots were fired from. Just a second. Where did he go? Where were you when you saw him on the 6th floor? I had went and got my jacket and was on my way back to the elevator. Alright, just a second. I'm going to get a plan of the 6th floor, if I have one, and try to have you point out to me. Yes, sir. Well, I don't seem to have a plan here, but perhaps we can use another plan here to help us. Here's a diagram of the front building. This is the Elm Street, and you can see the arrow pointing north. This is perhaps a diagram of the 3rd floor. You notice there are 7 sets of windows, right? Yes. On the Elm Street side, 7 pairs of windows. Yes, sir. You notice the 2 freight elevators towards the rear. Now, did you see when you first saw him on the 6th floor, where were you standing near any of these windows? No, sir. I was over by the elevators. You are pointing your finger to a spot which is somewhat to the east of the elevator. Is that correct? That's correct. At that spot, which is about the same line as you call the south side, we were standing at the point. Good Lord, they do go through a lot of talking just to get us a fucking position. That would be near the east wall of the building. Yes, sir. You can see scale here. Da, da, da. God, did they even get to it? Alright, we're going to stop here, and then we're going to go on to our next section. We'll pick this up next time. Alright, so we're back to Cadigan and the fake and real, possibly real paper sack. Alright, it says Cadigan was asked if he knew if the rolls had been changed from November 22nd to December 21st, 1963. A fairly simple question, but look how Cadigan responds. Yes, this was a sample taken December 1st. I could tell that it was different from sample 677 taken on the day of the assassination and different from the bag exhibit 142. Do you happen to know whether another roll was put in the machine between the 22nd and the 1st of December? May we go off the record? Wow. So of course they had completely different paper, because in those 10 days they had replaced that paper. And also, notwithstanding, the bag supposedly that Oswald carried the rifle in could have been taken anywhere from October to November. Okay? The only reason Cadigan wouldn't answer the question is he knew that the rolls had not been changed, which would seriously weaken his "they're the same even though they're different" testimony. Now let's see what happens when they go back on the record. On the record, do you know whether the Dallas office of the FBI has attempted to make a determination as to whether the replica paper bag, the paper in the replica paper bag prepared on December 1st, commission number 364, was or may have been or wasn't taken from the same roll as the replica piece of paper or sample piece of paper exhibit 677, which was obtained from the depository November 22nd? Wait, do they have that messed up? Okay. Yes. And can you tell us what you understand the results of the investigation to have been? Yes. We're unable to determine whether the paper from the replica sack exhibit 364 came from the same roll or different roll as the known sample obtained November 22nd, commission exhibit 677. Well, of course, because, you know, that paper sack, supposedly Oswald brought the rifle, could have been taken anywhere in October or November. Anyway, let's see. I understand that in the fall the depository is busy and you could worry about change rolls, but no records are kept along that line. And who would? Notice the question is changed to whether the Dallas office was able to determine if the rolls had been changed. Cadigan never did answer the question, the original question, whether he knew if the paper had been changed. Now, I know this might seem all ridiculous and overkill, but it's important because if they had gone to trial, they were able to do it here because they didn't go to trial. Okay? But if they had gone to trial, the paper sack that they were trying to show witnesses, as they're doing here in the Warren Commission, is not the same paper sack or the same paper material that was used supposedly to carry the gun. Completely different material. So they're using false, fake evidence that they've made up and created as a substitute for evidence they've destroyed. When in reality, in a trial, they would have thrown out the evidence completely because it had been destroyed by the FBI. But here they are, trying to make it all nice and presentable, so the people that they showed the bag to won't say, no, that's not the bag that I saw, because it didn't have all this oil on it, and I can't tell if that's really the same bag. So they knew they had a problem, and they created a fake bag to show the people, and this is all the minutia of this ridiculous process, so the FBI can cover for Dallas and the FBI's own fault for fucking up the evidence. Anyway, it goes on, and then even Mr. Dulles has to jump in because he sees it's getting off track here. Do you recall, Mr. Truly, whether you hired any personnel for work in this particular building in the school depository after the 15th of October or before the 22nd of November? No, sir. I don't recall hiring anyone other than Oswald for the building for the same day that I hired Oswald, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I hired another boy for a temporary job, but put him in the other warehouse at 1917 North Houston. At a different warehouse, see, he was laid off on November 15th, I believe November 15th, or something like that. So you see how lucky Oswald was? He could have been in that warehouse on the, 1917 North Houston, and all this would have been bullshit. But they had to get him in that building and get the president's route over to that building. Let's take a look at that 1917 North Houston. Hold on one second. So this would have been 1917 North Houston, but of course the freeway came along and wiped out that building. But just think, if Oswald had been lucky enough to be placed in this building, he wouldn't have ever been in the situation where he ended up. But of course, there's no way in hell they would have let him in that situation, because, you know, he was their guy. He was their project they had been working on for many, many years. I mean, not many, many years. Many, many months, okay, to get Kennedy. Alright, let's see. What else do we have on this interesting street here? There. Oh, no. Let's back up. See, there's the railroad yards right there where the cars have been parked. Okay. Back to the statement here. Alright. So, no, sir. What I was getting at is whether an accomplice could have gotten in that way. That is why I'm asking the question. What is Dulles up to there? No, sir, I don't recall. Actually, the end of the fall crush, if it hadn't existed a week or 2 weeks longer, or if we had not been using some of our regular boys putting down this plywood, we have not have a need for Lee Oswald at the time, which is a tragic thing for me to think about. Yeah, just think about that. If Oswald had never gone back to Dallas, okay, if he had gone back a week later, none of this would have happened. I'm sure they would have figured out some way to get him in a building somewhere, or to frame him for it. But anyway. And even though there were 10 days between the 22nd and the 1st, there were only 4 working days due to the assassination and Thanksgiving. Change the rules in the time, 10-day period? Yes, sir. Actually, there were 4 working days in that period. Cadigan also looked for evidence that the rifle had been inside the bag, but found none. See, that's another thing that they never talk about. Maybe they're going to talk about it here. Is that there would be nitrates inside the bag, okay? Because when you fire that rifle, even though you clean it, there's still going to be nitrates inside the wood, inside the cracks of the bolt and the barrel. And when you move that around and jimmy it around and carry it, and it shakes and stuff like that, all that's, especially if you're grabbing the rifle, and if there's nitrates on that rifle, just like they would get on your hand, they would get on the inside of the bag. Okay? So let's see what Mr. Cadigan says about that. Mr. Cadigan, did you notice when you looked at the bag whether there were, that is the bag found on the 6th floor, Exhibit 142, whether it had any bulges or unusual creases? I was also requested at the time to examine the bag to determine if that had any significant markings or scratches or abrasions or anything by which it would be associated with the rifle. Commission Exhibit 139, that is, Could I find any markings that I could tie to the rifle? Yes. Wow. So the policeman's answering the question, asking the questions now, and I couldn't find any such markings. So, if you take a paper sack, okay, and you put, let's just say, what would have something, let's say you have some tools, okay, some wrenches, and you've oiled up those wrenches and then you wipe them off, make them, so they don't get all rusty. You've oiled up the wrenches and you wipe them off. If you put those tools in a paper bag and grab that paper bag by the wrenches on the outside, it's probably going to, a little bit of the metal is going to pop through. It's going to leave some marks on the inside of the bag. It's also going to leave some oil. And there's nothing there, he's saying. Now, was there an absence of markings which would be inconsistent with the rifle having been carried in the bag? No, I don't see actually. I don't know the condition of the rifle. If it were in fact contained in this bag, it could have been wrapped in a cloth, or just metal parts wrapped in a thick layer of cloth, or if the gun was in the bag, perhaps it was moved too much. So even though he had the rifle there, he didn't know the condition of it. And where's this cloth or blanket or whatever it would have been wrapped in? And then why bother to carry the rifle in the paper sack if Oswald's got this, he can use that blanket he had at home. Why not just use that? I did observe some scratch marks and abrasions, but was unable to associate them with this gun. The scratch marks in the paper could come from any place. They could have come from many places. There were no marks on the bag that I could say were caused by the rifle or any other rifle and any other given instrument. Now let's think about that for a second. If you take the rifle, most likely you're going to stick the bigger end of the stock end last, and you know where the open end is, so you know approximately, because the rifle's 37 inches, the bag is 42, okay, you know approximately where those metal parts are going to be hitting inside that bag. So you can look there. You can just slice the bag open and take a look. Cardigan tries to explain away the absence of marks made by the rifle by suggesting that it might have been wrapped in a thick layer of cloth. Of course, no such item was ever found, so to suggest it is a bit disingenuous. Again, so where Oswald, he takes the rifle and he hides the rifle on the other side of he wipes off the prints, hides the rifle in the boxes on the other side of the 6th floor. He leaves the paper bag, but he takes the face shield that keeps the nitrates from getting on his face, and then he takes the gloves, okay, and he takes this he takes this cloth or blanket that he used to wrap the rifle in. He takes the blanket, the face shield, and the gloves, but leaves everything else. Oh, and don't forget, Oswald would have needed a screwdriver too. So where's the screwdriver to turn those screws to connect, those mounts of the rifle barrel into the stock? There's no screwdriver anywhere that's found. It's like almost the persons who did the assassination, they forgot a few things. Okay, we'll leave the bag over here, we'll leave the rifle over there, but the screwdriver, we'll take that with us. The face shield, we'll take that with us. And the gloves, we'll take that with us also. Very strange. Also significant is that Cardigan doesn't mention finding any oil or grease marks on the inside of the bag. Just exactly what I just said. If Oswald's out there, just the weekend before, shooting that rifle, it's going to have nitrates on it. It's going to have oil. You can't get all that oil off. You're going to need the oil to operate the, the bolt. So it's going to have oil on it. Matter of fact, Oswald would have been smart to have oiled it up to make it, more flexible and more workable before he, fired the rifle to kill the president. But there's no grease marks or oil marks. That oil would have stained that paper because paper is going to absorb any kind of oil, okay? But there's nothing there. Doesn't make any sense. One might expect to find some trace lubricant transferred to the absorbent paper. Riva-modified carcanos were immersed in a lubricant cosmoline before being transported across the Atlantic Ocean in order to prevent corrosion. Now, hold on one second. It said Riva made 12 shipments, all handled identically. At his workshop in Storo, the rifles were packed in the presence of the Italian authorities. Each gun was greased as protection against corrosion, then wrapped in wax or coated paper and inserted along with 9 others in a corrugated cardboard container. Trucked to Genoa, bathed and coated in cosmoline, had been insulated from the sea air that might seep into the Electra Fasso's hold. Furthermore, the FBI's own examination of the rifle determined the rifle was in a well-oiled condition. No oil has been applied to the weapon by the FBI. However, it is not known whether it was oiled by any other person having this rifle in his possession. It was noted during the examination of the firing pin that numerous shots have been fired with the weapon in the present well-oiled condition, as shown by the presence of residues on the interior surfaces of the bolt and on the firing pin. And that's another thing too, is that Oswald, unless he's washing his hands, is going to have oil on his hands too. Laboratory has no record of any outlet where spare parts, including firing pins, can be obtained for rifles, such as Commission Exhibit 159. In accordance with Mr. Zolgit's telephonic request, and in the absence of any indication that the firing pin of the rifle was changed, no investigative survey was conducted to ascertain whether any such outlets exist in the United States. So the reason a rifle like Oswald's was sold pretty cheaply is because spare parts weren't readily available. Okay? And so you got what you got, but if it broke, you were going to have one hell of a time. You'd have to have someone basically manufacture your spare parts for you. Alright, so we're going to stop there. We're at the time here, and we'll pick up after this. Alright, we're going to continue this article, The Mysterious Deaths of the Key JFK Witness by Mark Lane. This is about de Mohrenschildt and about his background and his suicide. And just need to get back to where I was before. Hold on one second. Alright, so pick it up here. It says, this is the later upward contract. De Mohrenschildt was said that was given a cover story about Oswald, that he had checked out the story and that he had moved Oswald around without having full knowledge of the use to which Oswald would be put. According to Altman's, de Mohrenschildt was torn between wanting to get the whole story told and feared that he might be prosecuted if some of the facts were known. He said, "I do not want Alexandra, his daughter, to be known as the daughter of the assassin." He told the Altmans that I might as well kill myself before this happens. No one can ever prove what I did. Of course, we're all hearing after de Mohrenschildt's dead what Altman is saying. It's Altman's version, okay? So we don't know any of this is fact. To relate the story of how he was used in the conspiracy, de Mohrenschildt began to write a book about his relationship with Oswald. He entitled it, I'm a Patsy, I'm a Patsy. Oswald had spoken these words to the Dallas Police and Courts building shortly after his arrest on November 22nd, 1963, immediately after he was informed by a reporter that he was being charged with the killing of the president. According to Altman's, DeMornshield was put in a mental ward, held there for 6 weeks, and giving electric shock treatment soon after he began his work on his manuscript. What would that be? Interesting. And it says, let's see what else here. In December 1976, Altman's arrived in Dallas and was informed by Mrs. DeMornshield's lawyer that he could not see DeMornshield. He returned to Dallas in February 1977 and met with DeMornshield for lunch. Although others were present at the lunch, DeMornshield spoke to Altman's in French and asked if Altman's could help him tell the whole story about the assassination in a way that would keep him from going to jail. Okay. Hold on one second. Altman's agreed to help DeMornshield. Now remember, this is told by Altman's, who obviously something happened in Europe because DeMornshield left Altman's and didn't tell him where he was going, and then came back to the U.S. on his own while leaving his own personal clothing there. So something happened, they didn't like Altman or something like that. But now, after the fact, we're hearing Altman tell us what DeMornshield told him, supposedly. Alright, so Altman's and DeMornshield flew to Amsterdam, where the videotaped interviews were conducted. They visited Brussels together, and suddenly DeMornshield disappeared. Altman's never saw him again. So something obviously happened between DeMornshield and Altman. On March 11th, 1977, Altman's made a statement to the Select Committee. He told them that DeMornshield asked me not to hang him, but to give you some information in such a way that he will not go to prison. Altman said, I did not want to betray George. I like him, and I gave my word. After DeMornshield's death, Altman's returned to Washington and testified before the Select Committee as to the full knowledge of the events. Let's see. Testimony has not been made public. I learned about it in meetings with Altman's. Altman's has written a book which fully explains his relationship with DeMornshield. The book has found a Dutch publisher, but as of the writing, the American publishers seem reluctant to publish it. Altman's met DeMornshield in March of 1967. DeMornshield had defended himself against charges that he was involved in the espionage. So this must be March 1967, must be when he's doing this interview here, because he's still married to his wife at that time. In espionage in United States and Yugoslavia by claiming that he was not sketching secret military installations in both countries, but that he was an artist painting seascapes and landscapes. Altman's told me that in the 10 years that he knew DeMornshield and visited his home, he had never seen any art supplies, brushes, or an easel or painting done by DeMornshield. He said that neither DeMornshield nor his wife ever mentioned that he had an interest in painting or sketching. DeMornshield told Altman's, one day I'm very much afraid of this investigation by Jim Garrison, at that time the New Orleans District Attorney, because I believe that he is on the right track. There you go. According to Altman's, DeMornshield told him that when Oswald shouted, I'm a patsy, he spoke the absolute truth. He was a patsy. During February 1969, DeMornshield asked Altman's, how would you feel if someday it were discovered that I did actively organize the Kennedy assassination? 3 years later, DeMornshield wrote a letter to Altman's regarding the tape-recorded statements that he had made with him. He wrote, please under no conditions release these tapes to any government commission. Later that year, DeMornshield told Altman's that he would be rewarded by financial interests in Dallas if he became known that I had something to do with the assassination. He added that he knew that the anti-Castro Cubans actually shot JFK for betraying him at the Bay of Pigs, and that he had a perfect case. So he's going back and forth that he planned it, he was used, and that the Oswald shot Kennedy, and now the Castro Cubans shot Kennedy. 2 years later, during the September 1974 Morshield began to talk to Altmans about fearing for his life. He said he was afraid he would be killed if he remained in the United States. He instructed Altmans in a letter to make tapes available in case of my removal from the scene by the assassination or otherwise. Later that year, de Morshield wrote to the Altmans about his relationship with the CIA. Continued, I got one girl, a student at Bishop College, into the CIA because she was just the type, unscrupulous. She called me from D.C. during a French exam. I gave her the answers and she passed. Okay. How would he have known the answers? Anyway, at the time, de Morshield was teaching at Bishop College in Texas. He spoke French fluently. In February 1977, de Morshield said to Altmans, Wilhelm, how would it look to the world if it came and said that I felt responsible for Oswald's behavior, and then added, Oswald followed my instructions. It was about the assassination. He pleaded with Altmans not to reveal the information he had given to him. I trust you, he wrote. Don't hang me, don't incriminate me. Now, the question I have with all this, whether it's Altman saying it and making up, saying that de Morshield said it, or de Morshield actually said it to Altman, is that nobody knew that Kennedy was going to be going to Dallas in November, okay, and that, you know, de Morshield was on his way to Haiti, and Oswald was on his way to New Orleans, okay. So how could he have instructed Oswald to assassinate Kennedy if de Morshield was going to Haiti and Oswald was going to New Orleans, and no one knew that Kennedy was going to be in Dallas in November? Not even Kennedy. Anyway, alright, maybe this is part of the, if de Morshield is telling Altmans this, maybe this is part of his mental breakdown that he needed shock treatments for, or maybe Altmans is making all this up. Who knows? De Morshield told Altmans that in the manuscript he had written, he mentioned the names of the FBI and the CIA functionaries who were involved in the assassination. He added, obviously no one wants these names to be published. Later, de Morshield said, after I finished the manuscript, I was given drugs and then sent to a psychiatric clinic. He said that his severe problems began after he finished the book, and that he had begged Altmans to bring me to safety. Take me away from Dallas, or I will be destroyed. Altmans invited de Morshield to accompany him to Amsterdam. De Morshield was anxious to go, but hesitated because he said that a man named Epstein called. Epstein had offered him a substantial sum of money to remain in the United States and meet for an interview. De Morshield finally went to Amsterdam and returned to the United States, where he sat for the interview with Edward Epstein, and then, of course, he killed himself that day also. Epstein is a reporter who some years later earlier had been involved in a campaign to clear FBI of charges that it had used excessive violence or conspired unlawfully to destroy the Black Panther Party. In fact, the FBI documents reveal that the secret operation COINTELPRO was organized to do just that. Remember, I talked about that in an earlier video. Although Epstein assumptions were false and his conclusions invalid, the intelligence agency made use of his work to counter charges that the FBI had violated citizens' rights. In July 13, 1968 issue of New Yorker magazine, where there appears an article written by Epstein where he attacks point by point Jim Garrison's assertions of the existence of a conspiracy to kill JFK and the involvement of Clay Shaw. Epstein ridicules the character and evidence. So obviously Epstein was part of Mockingbird. Evidence gathering methods of then District Attorney of New Orleans. Within 1 week of publication of the article, the CIA had circulated Epstein's inaccurate charges to the intelligence chiefs and stations throughout the world, directing them to demonstrate an interest in parties that there are no hard evidence of such a conspiracy Epstein flawed defense of the FBI and use of the work by the CIA. Let's see, what is... I don't know what that says there. Where Epstein was, George DeMorchil was with DeMorchil just before DeMorchil died. Though clearly one cannot even consider the possibility that Epstein actually killed DeMorchil. Huh, interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So being part of the Mockingbird and the FBI and CIA's disinformation campaign, Epstein was there right before DeMorchil killed himself. Fascinating. I didn't even think about that. So let's take a look at Epstein. Let's see if we're going to do research here on Epstein. So we got Edward J. Epstein. Edward J. Epstein. Sorry, you have to go off on these tangents to try to figure out what's what. Oh, he's a real winner. Oh, not a kook at all. Anyway, let's take a look here. Edward J. Epstein, an investigative journalist and former political science professor at Harvard University. Remember I said that Harvard crowd. The University of California, Los Angeles, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Epstein was born in New York City in 1935. He has a Bachelor's of Arts and Master's of Arts in Government from Cornell University. One of his professors was Vladimir Nabokov, of whom Epstein worked part-time advising the writer to which recently released films he should see. In 1973, he received a PhD in Government from Harvard University. He completed his master's thesis on The Search for Political Truth, which later became a top-selling book. Wow, that's interesting. Someone involved, most likely, in the CIA's Mockingbird program. Okay. And he writes a book on The Search for Truth. Anyway, Epstein taught courses at the university for 3 years. While a graduate student at the Cornell University in 1966, he published the book Inquest, an influential critic of the Warren Commission probe into the JFK assassination. After teaching at Harvard, interesting, he did a critique on the Warren Commission, but then ends up defending them. He wrote 3 books about the Kennedy assassination, eventually collected the Assassination Chronicles, Inquest, Counterplot, and Legend, 1992. His books Legend, 1978, and Deception, 1989, drew on interviews from retired CIA counterintelligence chief Jesus James Angleton. Well, there's a reliable source. And in 1982, book The Rise and Fall of Diamonds were an expose on the diamond industry and its economic impact on Southern Africa. Just a side note on that, I worked briefly at the Borscht in Tel Aviv, maybe just a couple of months, with this, of course, family in Tel Aviv. And the Borscht is the only place in all of, it's the Tel Aviv Diamond Exchange. It's right there, right across the highway from Tel Aviv. It's actually in, gosh, what's the name of that city? It's actually another city, but it's, the Tel Aviv metro area. But the Borscht is the only place in all of Israel that a warrant and the police can't get into. They have to, it's like a special warrant they have to have, I believe, from the Supreme Court, and they actually have to have almost a trial to get the warrant to get in there. The police are never allowed in there. No one's ever allowed in there. It's very, very strict. They have it's like a city within a city and a country within a country. They have their own security. They do optical and palm scans and finger scans for all the people that go in there. And of course they do body scans and all that kind of stuff. And so the Borscht, basically, it's a big building, and it's I don't know how to describe it. It's not really one company. I think that someone owns the building, but they rent out the spaces, or you buy a space, okay, in the Borscht. It's sort of like, how do I want to say, it's sort of like each independent family buys an office in the Bourse, okay? And so what the Bourse does, they buy collectively, okay, all the diamonds from all over the world, mostly from South Africa. They're starting to get more. They used to have more from Russia and India, but mostly from South Africa. They have an exclusive, contract with De Beers that, De Beers is sitting on millions and billions of dollars worth of diamonds, and they slowly release every year a set amount of diamonds, even though they've got a hell of a lot more. And so they bring up these diamonds, and they bid. The Bourse bids collectively. All these different families bid collectively for their portion. Now, there's other places. There are other Bourses, I guess you could say. There's one in, I think there's another one in Netanya. There's another one, a couple of them in Brussels and even New York, and I think even Moscow and New Delhi, and now the Chinese are getting into it also. I think they have their own. But the Bourse in Tel Aviv is one of the biggest in the world. I mean, if you were wearing a diamond ring, or you went around and grabbed 1,000 newlyweds, probably 900 of those got their rings. They don't know it, but their rings came through that came through the Bourse. And so what the families do is this is mostly Hasidic people, Orthodox Hasidic ones. This is how they make their money and take care of their people, is they buy into this. It's a really, really high price to have an office there. And then that gives you the ability to buy in to collectively the diamonds that come through the Bourse. So every year they buy these diamonds, and then they just randomly, pass them out. You get a scoop, you get a scoop, you get a scoop, and hopefully these diamonds will have in there some gems, okay? And then what they do is they go through, and there's a certain rating system for rating them, and it depends on if they have flaws in them, if they have, the color, and all these different things are going to make the value more or less. And that's just the diamond. Now, it's really the cut. If you want to talk about the price of a diamond, the color and the imperfections and the perfections in the diamond are going to be maybe 50% of the value of the diamond, okay? What really makes the value of a diamond is going to be the cut, and who's making the cut. So a lot of these families, they have people generational for hundreds of years. That's all they've done. Back in Russia, back in Germany, and in New York, they did those. And then when they all, those families, a lot of those families immigrated to Israel. And so, like, this one family, their grandfather and father and father and grandfather's father, they'd all been diamond cutters, and they passed that along to their children. Now, there are new ways of cutting diamonds with, like, computers and crap like that, and lasers, but real value is going to depend on who's cutting it, the family, their experience, and every family's rated on their experience, because people know those diamonds came from that family, or these diamonds came from that family, and the one on the right is much better than the one on the left. So the value of the ones coming from that family on the right is going to be a hell of a lot more than ones on the left. Okay? And it's very, very tightly controlled. But these families compete. Even though they work together, they fiercely compete with their diamonds to get them sold out there to other people. And so that's the cutting part, and then there's the sales part. And so the sales part is what I was doing. So I call around to all these different, companies in the U.S., and they had people calling France, and they had people calling Russia, and they had, different language people speaking, because in Israel there's somebody that speaks every fucking language, and they had people calling Arab countries, and they had people calling all over, so Spanish called over Spain, and so there would be big retailers that we would call, and we would take the diamonds, and after they've been, categorized and there's actually an independent group of, each family has put together like a council of raters, okay? And so each family has one person that's part of this council, and they look through every single diamond, okay? And they give it a rating and a value. And then that is gold. That's, some of this family, it's a rating and a value, boom. And then they get those back. The family, they take pictures and put this rating and all this information on the website. And then my job, whenever we got a new batch in, was to call all these contacts. We had a huge database of contacts of people. And there was a representative, a buyer. They had a buyer there. And I'd call them and say, hey, we got a new batch in. Take a look at it. And let me know which ones that you're interested in. And I'd try to push, certain highlighted ones that my boss told me to push. And it's very, very competitive. Not only am I calling with that family's brand, there's probably, I don't know how many families there were, but I tell you there's probably 20 floors, and probably on each floor there's 10 different groups, so you're probably talking 200, 300 families, okay, or agencies that are calling. But they're not all calling the U.S., a lot of them are specializing in different countries. But, so, the diamond industry, very controlled, and in fact there's a great museum there too, about the whole thing. But I found it fascinating. I remember my boss was this very conservative, orthodox guy, and I was just, didn't really know a lot about diamonds, and so I was a little hesitant on the sales end. And after about a month, I remember he came up to me and he's smoking the cigarette inside the building. You're not supposed to smoke inside, but he did it anyway because Israeli laws didn't apply inside the Borscht. They could do whatever the fuck they wanted. It was sort of like Trump on Fifth Avenue. If they killed somebody inside the Borscht, the police couldn't come in and investigate it. They'd throw the body in the street out front of the Borscht, and then the police could come and investigate it. But anyway, so I remember he's sitting there smoking in the office, and they listen to you like all day, making the calls. And he goes up to me, I remember saying, I'm not going to say my name, but I say, I like you. My dog likes you. People like you when you call. But there's one problem that you have. You're too fucking honest. Okay? And then he come here. I want to show you something. Come over here. And he points outside the window. We're on the 20th floor or something. 20 out of 30 floors. He points down in the parking lot, and there's a brand new Mercedes, black Mercedes there. And he goes, you see that black Mercedes right there? On the right? By the wall? And I go, yeah, I see it. It's a brand new 2007, or maybe it's 2008 Mercedes, whatever, GLs, whatever the hell those things are. And you see the one to the left of that? That's my wife's. It's a 2006. And he says it's a great car. It gets me from here to there. It's a great car. Now, you see across the street here, over there, you see there's someone's driving a Toyota or a Nissan. And those are good cars. They get you from point A to point B. Okay? And nothing wrong with that. That's okay. If you want to drive a Nissan, or if you want to drive a Toyota, that's okay, perfectly fine. But then he turns around and he points his cigarette almost in my face, and points his finger right in my eyes, and says, but if you want to drive a fucking brand new fucking Mercedes, and you want to be fucking rich, you have to learn to lie. And I said, what? Lie? I can't lie. He goes, I know you can't lie. He says, but look, you do like this. If we have 10 of these diamonds and they're all selling for the same price, you don't tell them we have 10. You tell them we have 1. And someone's already put a deposit down on that one. And maybe if you buy it right now, this minute, that you can find a replacement for the other guy. Okay? But then he points his finger back in my face and he goes, if you want to drive the Nissan, the Toyota, and be poor, that's okay. Go find another job. And then he points his finger back in my face, and almost in my eye again, and says, but if you want to be fucking rich, you have to learn to fucking lie. Okay, go back to work. And that was it. And I quit that day. I just wasn't gonna lie like that. Okay, I just couldn't do it. And but that's the way the guy was. That's how he got rich. Not by lying, just by stretching the truth, I guess you could say. But anyway, so we're gonna go back into the movie here about the Mournshield for the few minutes that we have. I think we got about 10 minutes. All right, hold on 1 second.
Resume of
All
the
right, here
Warren
we are.
Committee
We're back.
report had a lot of unpleasant effects on our lives in Haiti. Only the real friends understood the reasons of our involvement with the assassin, in quotation mark. In this way, the phony friends were weeded out of our lives. But too many people who had been contacted at several occasions by the FBI agents have become either annoyed or really suspicious of us. After all, where there is a smoke, there is fire. Idiotic and insulting article appeared in the newspapers all over the world about my wife and I, about the mysterious friends of Lee Harvey Oswald. I probably should have sued them, but I did not bother. Our private, intimate lives have been thoroughly invaded and therefore polluted. Money was offered us for interviews, which we refused. Telephone service, especially overseas in Haiti, was inadequate. I was one of the few, by the way, with a telephone in my office, but not at home. This telephone was buzzing for weeks with calls for me. When did you meet Harvey Lee Oswald? Why did you like him so much? Do you think he killed President Kennedy? Why are you hiding in Haiti, etc.? And this was absolutely ridiculous because we have left for Haiti 9 months prior to assassination. So all this...
See, there you go. So Altman's either lying and making up stuff that he said he heard de Mournshield say, or de Mournshield was having a mental breakdown and delusional and saying stuff that didn't happen. Because here he's just said that, you know, he left. How would he have anything to have done with the assassination? Because they left 9 months before the assassination. That's not exactly true, though, because they didn't leave until June, and June's only 5 months before the assassination. So when he says 9 months, that's when he messed up, because 9 months would be back in February, okay?
Questions were very annoying. After those few questions, I usually would hang up. Then came the offer of a televised interview for NBC, forthcoming, the Warren Report.
Who was the reporter?
What? The Warren Report.
Macmillan?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
George, may I ask you
The Warren Report.
George,
yes.
George. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Who was, you said NBC. Did anyone come to see you from NBC?
That's exactly what I wanted to tell.
Yeah. This is all used?
Yeah, but I don't know if I would use it. The Warren Report. At first, we steadfastly refused. Then one day, George Macmillan, one of the writers assigned to this program, called and asked for a permission to come and visit us in Haiti. He sounded like an intelligent man, and he was well recommended by a mutual friend. I told him that I would refuse an interview, televised interview, but if he wanted to come and talk to us, he would be welcome. A rather gruesome incident coincided with his arrival in Port-au-Prince. After one of the many invasions of Haiti, this one came from Cuba, the militia had executed one of the invaders to show the populace of Port-au-Prince that it does not pay to invade Haiti by any method. The body of the man, with guns, ammunition, and various supplies, was displayed on a plaza near the airport. As Macmillan, an experienced newspaperman, arrived, he saw the commotion and the crowds surrounding the body. We did not want him to see the gruesome sight. Later in the evening, however,
especially the reason was we didn't want him to know what was there, because we thought he came over just to learn something about Haiti. It was completely never occurred to us that he came on business of Oswald. We thought he came over, maybe he wanted to have an interview on Haiti, or maybe to see some more people and to learn about Haiti.
That kind of seems kind of disingenuous if, they know that he called about Oswald and then he's coming down to Haiti. He's not coming down, to find out about Haiti. He's coming down to find out what you know about Oswald. So that's kind of disingenuous. Maybe she wasn't informed about the phone call or something. I don't know.
So can you imagine what the impact would be on a reporter arriving in Port-au-Prince and leaving the airport, and immediately there's a cadaver displayed in a plaza. So we did our best to pass it as fast as we could, skirted it, and bring him home, and said nothing at all. And then,
excuse me, in other words, to make a good impression of Haiti on a foreign newspaper.
yeah,
That was your loyalty towards Haiti. Then another question. But didn't he call from overseas that he wanted to talk to you about the Oswald assassination? Or he was recommended for a general reportage on Haiti?
that's exactly.
Okay.
we had no idea why was he coming.
Right,
But
sure.
being in Haiti, away from home, we were welcome any American, and we always took them if we didn't know them. If they're nice and pleasant people, we always offered them hospitality, and we would like to talk about our home. If they were fairly pleasant people, we put them in a hotel. But we always tried to help with anything we can to any American that arrived in Haiti.
Thank you, Jan.
Very good. I didn't make it clear. NBC offered us the interview, but then Macmillan said that he would just come and see us. Later in the evening, as we sat on our terrace overlooking the beautiful bay in the cities, surrounded by tropical vegetation, Macmillan mused aloud. Why didn't you want me to see the cadaver? I knew all along what it was. And then Macmillan went straight to the business of our appearing for the NBC broadcast of the Warren Committee report. He started trying to convince us to accept the filmed interview and even offered to bring the TV crew to Haiti. But we had had enough publicity and refused. Fortunately, George Macmillan turned out to be a nice fellow, a good tennis player, so he did not.
Hey, as long as he's a good tennis player, right? Hold on one second.
A nice fellow, a good tennis player, so he did not waste his time entirely. He left Haiti asking us to reconsider our decision. I wrote to several friends to ask their advice, and they all said that we should all go to New York and accept the offer. You are the only ones who had kind words for Lee. Tell them once more, for the whole United States to hear them. Another friend wrote, this TV show may dispel the aura of mystery about you and your relation to Lee Harvey Oswald. A couple of weekends later, we reconsidered our decision and flew to New York. NBC had arranged for an apartment at the Plaza Hotel where we spent the whole afternoon in front of the cameras. What was annoying to me, that the producer tried to prod me to say something derogatory about Lee. It was an insidious effort to drag out of me some damaging comments to his memory.
You see, so that statement right there, made in 1967, doesn't jive with what Altman is saying in 1977, that, he had gotten Lee to assassinate JFK. That didn't make any sense. They were defending him and trying not to say anything derogatory that the news media is trying to get him to say in 1967. Why would that change in 1977? So, something weird's going on there. Like I said, dead men tell no tales, like they say. It's hard to defend yourself when you're dead, so anybody can say you said anything. because you can't defend yourself when you're dead. Okay, so
The whole thing did not make much sense, and it was based on wrong premises. That my wife and I might have some inside knowledge, only something that would confirm the general opinion existing in the United States at the time, that Lee was definitely the assassin. Since the Warren Committee could not find any reason for the assassination, nor any plot, therefore there must be a hidden reason somewhere, and I, as his admittedly best friend, should give an explanation of his insane action. This was the producer's reasoning. To Jean and I, although we did not have any more information on the events in Dallas the day of the tragedy, Lee remained a nice, interesting, good friend, and we never considered him an assassin. Of course, everything is possible if the man becomes insane, and we don't deny this slight possibility. But the previous chapters describing our acquaintanceship indicate that he did not act insane with us, nor was he ever to us, nor will he ever be, a born loser, an insanely envious person, a poor high school dropout, a dedicated, bloodthirsty revolutionary, etc.
see, there you go.
Later we saw the completed 40 minutes film of ourselves at the NBC studio and realized how poorly we presented the side of Lee Harvey Oswald, whom we had liked so much. We wish we had done a better and more intelligent job.
You move now into another chapter.
Yes, the next chapter is M, Return to United States from Haiti.
Yeah, that was about what time?
That was in October of 1966.
So you stayed after the assassination
Oh, yes.
3 more years in
That's right.
Haiti. Yeah.
It was hard for us to leave Haiti, but my work was completed and some other business was in view. We came back by a small German steamer carrying our car and numerous cases of instruments, maps, books, and various other possessions. From Miami we drove, having jammed a huge trailer full of our things. In Dallas, which we had left 3.5 years before, we hoped to find some good old friends. Instead, we met suspicion and outright hostility. Pretty soon we found out the reason, and the reason was the Warren Committee report. Frankly, after our testimony, which we signed without even bothering to read, truth is truth, so why bother reading again what we had said? We put the matter on inquiry of other of a matter of inquiry and our testimonies and interrogation out of our own minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say some very good friends of ours, and I don't want to mention the name, it's not necessary at all. They asked us, did you read Warren report? I said, no. Aren't you going to read it? You have it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
In other words, we were tired of the whole thing, of the report, of the testimonies, and of interrogation, and we wanted to put them out of our minds. The whole aura of suspicion, of insinuation, became odious to us, but the events forced us to pay attention to what we had said, and especially what had been said about us. Soon after our arrival, we sat with some friends in Fort Worth, good friends, who had visited us in the meantime in Haiti, and they insisted that we should get the 16 volumes of the report and find out what had been said about us. That, they said, will explain to you the attitude of some people you had known and whom you might consider your friends. And indeed, soon after reading several depositions, I realized that Albert Jenner, the counsel of the Warren Committee, was so right when he had said, "You will be the only people in the world to know exactly what other people think about you because you will see it in print, and they will have said that under oath. Then you will know who are your friends and who are your enemies." By the way, our friends who suggested our reading of the Warren report, and they testified there also, were quite indignant, as many other people were, who volunteered information to FBI, that what they had said had been printed. It was most unfair that private matters which had been given in confidence were exposed to public. These friends of ours swore they would never trust these FBI's again, and would never put themselves
Alright, so I'm going to stop
in the
here,
position of informers.
and we'll continue on tomorrow. Alright, take care.
It was sad to read an opinion